Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Too Old to Die Young, Volume 10, The World. So, full spoilers for the episode, of course. Full spoilers for the whole show, because this is actually the final episode. This is the end of the story.
Yep.
Our little 30-minute capper on the rest of the whole thing, which was an interesting final episode. It was two characters getting a little bit of time to do very different things.
I can definitively say
Mm-hmm.
it was an episode.
Yes, yes, it was an episode. Was
not quite sure how much I can say it was an ending.
Well, was it the end of the story or was it an epilogue? The answer is neither. The answer is it's neither of those things.
Honestly, it actually felt like an epilogue, but I'd missed the ending.
But the story was yeah. Well, the funny thing is everything that feels like it didn't show are all stuff we knew were going to happen, because we'd gotten to the point where it was very clear the direction that it was saying all the characters were going in, and Refn, being the auteur that he is like, well, you know where it's going, so I don't have to show you it now. Now you can just get a little bit of this flavor at the end and go home happy, or stay sitting in your home because it's on streaming services. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's funny because last episode you said that you weren't expecting more than 3 scenes, and about 30 seconds into the first scene, which was Janie with a VR headset on, listening to masturbation instructions. Diana.
Diana. Okay.
Yes.
Either way, I was closer.
Yes. Listening to masturbation instructions, and it's not like erotic masturbation instructions. It's not like someone's like being all sexy and be like, "Oh, and now do this and now this." It was like a robotic, like Alexa sort of voice, just being like, "And rub clockwise. Now hold your breath for 10, 9." It was like the most like static and like monotonous possible way to do this. But she's kneeling on the bed, and and yeah, the first half of this episode, because the episode neatly splits down the middle, is I actually checked the time. It was exactly 15 minutes.
Dead in the middle, yeah. I know.
Yeah, when it switched to Yaritza. So I mean, I think it's very interesting right away that in this final episode we focus on just Diana and Yaritza. It is just the female characters. Which goes along with everything we've been saying recently about the show kind of intentionally ending with them being the future of what this world is. And the episode's called The World. And Diana's half is essentially her phoning in sick and taking a day off and unwinding. I mean, the majority of her stuff, I mean, you've got the opening scene where she's masturbating. You then have a scene where she phones in sick, and once whoever's replacing her for the day to know, hey, let them know that I'm thinking about them, like her, her cases. Let them know that she's thinking of them. But then the rest of her stuff is made up of 2 scenes. In fact, almost 2 shots. There's like one little bit in the shower when she's shaving her legs. That may have happened already, but it's like 2 scenes.
It's after the song.
After the song. Because it's essentially one long panning shot going around her apartment, from left to right, very, very, very slowly. And as this is happening, there's a song playing, and Diana is dancing in and out of frame. She's like dancing around this big pillar, like her fireplace is this part of this big chunky pillar in the middle of the house.
I actually thought it was an interesting choice of song, because it was Ooh La La is the name of the song. And the whole point, the whole point of the song is about sexual freedom, which, given the first scene, I thought was it's an interesting contrast. Given this was quite active and vibrant, as opposed to the very they say monotonous and is still and robotic of the first.
I mean, can you read that then? This is her taking a day to try and just? I mean, obviously she's trying to have a day for herself, but like
it's kind of trying to be normal, I suppose. Maybe.
Well, a bit more so that her entire life is kind of focused around these really awful things and what happens when that freedom is taken away. The idea that on her day off where she's not thinking about it, this is her unwinding. This is how she unwinds. In a thematic sense.
A day for herself, because as much as she does get off in the first scene, like I say, it feels very still, and then she's all right. I'm phoning in sick, even though she's obviously not actually sick. She's just she's taking the day off.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the actual sexual gratification isn't really maintained just by having an orgasm. It's just the freedom and the just to do whatever. But of course, though, being Diana, by the end of the day, the second shot that I was talking about is just a shot looking at her as she sits and gives her philosophy and her belief of where the world's going, and that there's going to be race wars, and that the innocence of the world will be maintained when women kind of like take control after all the men have essentially killed each other. That was the kind of the gist of it. It was very long. It was a monologue, and it was more traditionally what you think of when you think of Diana, and the scenes she's had, and I guess it maybe just shows that she does kind of do this where she'll forget to be herself for a little while to unwind because she's human and she has to do that, but it doesn't change the fact that by the end of the night she's back to being her again, because it's who she is.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's basically the first half of the episode. The second half is just one scene. It is Yaritza first watching from afar and then going into this bar where some of the cartel go for drinks. There's girls all up at the back of the room who are all kind of sitting there on show.
Yeah, they're in a semicircle on these chairs. Very uncomfortable looking chairs in comparison as well.
Yeah, and they're all very scantily clad as well. It's very clear that they're there to serve drinks because we see that happen, but also just kind of wait to be picked for whatever the men want. And Yaritza comes in and she's like, "Hey, I want to be with my people," and the guy's like, "Okay, I'll offer you a drink." But of course, he actually snaps his fingers and like makes a clicking sound with his mouth to get one of the girls to come up and serve her. And then she wants a second drink, and she's like, "No, you pour it yourself this time. You serve it." And obviously, the second she walks in this place, I'm like, okay, this is ending with her killing every single one of these assholes.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time, isn't it?
It's just a matter of waiting. But what she does first, though, she goes up to the girls and says, "Hey, do you know the song "The High Priestess of Death"?" Which, I mean, we didn't know that was a song, I don't think, before now.
I was not familiar with that.
Yeah. And the woman's like, yeah, sure. And she gets a guitar and she starts singing this song. And Yaritza just stands there with her back to the girls, sort of looking at the rest of the room. And the main guy kind of turns around and is just staring at like, why that song? What the hell? Like,
what's the point of this?
Yeah. And she just sort of walks to the middle of the room. She unzips her jacket. She's always got her hands in, and pulls out her guns and just goes to town as her theme plays. In fact, notably as well, I like that
all the dialogue cuts away.
All the dialogue cuts away, but before everything starts and she's just staring at the front door, the light kind of shimmers a little bit and it looks like it's glowing on her. It looks like it is literally a moment of like getting divine power before she goes to battle. Just a nice little touch. And her performance was really good as well, because the second time he tried to order the girl to get a drink, he made this clicking sound, and it fell into a close up of her. Well, it wasn't really it was more of a medium close up, but the camera had been so wide the whole scene that it felt like
it's
a close up at this
comparison.
point. And her eyes, just watching him as he does this, the way he's talking to her was just, you could see it. You could see the gears turning and the seething sort of feelings coming from behind the eyes. It was a very good performance.
It was.
And the music keeps playing as she walks out, and all the men are dead. And that is the end of the episode and the end of the show. So it's very interesting that this episode is just this. It's just these couple of things. It's basically both Diana and Yaritza. We know that they're going to cross paths. We know that Diana's expecting to meet her. We know that that's ultimately where she's going. And that's very exciting. But ultimately all this episode really does is say that Diana's going to keep being Diana and Yaritza's going to keep being Yaritza. And that they are the future. Obviously there's no Martin because he's dead. But there's no Vigo in this episode. There's no Jesus in this episode. There's no one else. It's just them. The only men that are here are the ones that are there to be killed by Yaritza.
Yes, exactly.
So
very disposable.
So it's a very, very interesting statement of an ending. I do understand why people are upset and rated this very lowly on IMDb because it has a very low rating.
Oh, it does. I'm not surprised. I'm a little unsatisfied, I would say. I think if this had come as an epilogue after an actual ending, I'd be very okay with this. If the last episode had ended in a not neat place, but if it had felt like a conclusion of sorts, and then there was this, I'd have been very happy with this. It would have shown, okay, these two women, they're just doing what they're doing, and it's going to carry on. As an epilogue, that works for me. as this thing that is kind of before the ending, in a sense. It's a little frustrating.
I'm not frustrated. I actually, looking at it as a whole now, I'm like, yeah, it ended. Like, I got the ending. I got it.
No, I get it, but it was like disappointing to not see any of this, not see any interaction between Yaritza and Diana, for example. Yeah, just disappointing. Rather frustrating is maybe not the right word. 'Cause I'm not annoyed at it.
Yeah. I'm honestly not disappointed. The only thing that I would have maybe liked to see, actually, because the hope of them coming together was met perfectly when she told Vigo this last episode. I don't really need it, but the one thing that I do think that I could have done with seeing is probably Yaritza, like, giving Jesus what he's owed. Like, that I think that would have been something I could have really get into.
Yeah, or the other cartel dude.
Oh, you mean Latino Defoe?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I didn't hate him as much, though. He was just like
he wasn't hateable, but I really wanted her to kill him with the gun that
sure.
she made him get.
Well, again, I think the ending's so open that, I mean, she probably will.
She probably goes off and does these things, and no, I get that, which is why I'm not like really annoyed about this ending, because sure, yeah, those things are all going to happen, and that's cool. That's cool. I'm just a little disappointed I'm not seeing any of it, given that there have been multiple episodes at an hour and a half in this show, and I could have done with a nice another hour and a half here to have some of these things, and instead I got half an hour. That makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I'm just not that pissed about it. I feel like it feels like such a Refn move. It feels like a Refn move. It likewise feels like a Lynch move. It feels kind of like that. You remember when we got to the Twin Peaks? Remember that final episode of The Return, and the initial kind of like, okay, what was that?
We have to talk feel about like that was packed full of stuff where I'm like, oh, that there's all this possibility and what the hell. Whereas this is okay, sure, it's kind of where we left off last time. Those things happen. If this episode didn't exist, I don't think there is anything that if last episode, if that where we finished there was the end, the things that we said, all right, well, these things are going to go and happen. This doesn't change any of that. This doesn't add anything to that dynamic. It doesn't add any new layers to, but it's going to happen in this way. Whereas the ending of Twin Peaks, holy shit, that changed so much and left me with so many questions. Whereas this doesn't leave me with any questions. Doesn't, or at least no new questions after this episode.
So do you think it'd be better if the episode just wasn't here? If it just ended with episode 9?
I think I might have actually been more satisfied, weirdly. Because even though I like the content in this episode, there's nothing wrong with any of the moments, the scenes, all 2 of them, in this episode. I like them individually. I feel like it doesn't add enough to justify existing as a final episode, though. That's not like I mean, if this had been an epilogue after a more traditional ending, I'd have been okay with it. If this had just not been here at all, probably would have been happier.
I think in hindsight, it feels like it actually is kind of the epilogue after the proper ending. Because to me, the ending of the show now is them in that diner or that restaurant. To me, that kind of wraps up. To me, that is the final culmination of the show, in the sense that it brings back the hope. Vigo gets his ending, his artful shootout that he gets, and this idea that he knows there's going to be a replacement because Diana tells him. Like all that stuff to me kind of is the ending. Now, admittedly, the one thing that's maybe kind of missing is Jesus kind of getting what he's owed,
and I don't disagree with all that stuff in the diner. But it didn't have the weight to feel like an ending, even though contextually it probably is.
I disagree with that. I think it had the weight.
This is the thing. I think if it had the weight, we'd have felt it as we were watching it. We'd have gone, "This is the ending." Whereas we got to the end of that last episode and we had a discussion and we went, okay, well, there's still clearly more to come. That was, this is not an epilogue. This is no,
because that was only because there was another one. There was another one on the list. That's why I said there's clearly more to come, because there's one more. And the way it ended felt like, so there's obviously going to be more story here because they've set up this stuff. But it had let's say there was no episode 10, and that was just the final episode of the show, and we got to that scene in the diner, I would have felt immensely satisfied with just how sort of the hopeful ambiguity that it gives.
Possibly.
I feel like the point of this final episode the purpose is very much just the fact that it focuses on the two characters it does. It's making a statement by just being about those two, and just having them do their thing and continue on in the way they have been. It's just making a statement by just being that and nothing else. Even if the actual content of the episode doesn't advance things in a traditional fashion, it's just making a statement by existing. And that's Refn being Refn. It's Refn being ballsy and kind of being artful and saying, "Hey, I've got something to say, and this is me saying it in the most arguably pretentious way he can."
No, I think, you know, the more I think about it, the more I think I'd have preferred it had this episode not been here. If it had ended at the end of the last one, I think I would have been happier.
Okay.
And I don't think that would have. It's not. It still wouldn't have been a neat ending, right? We would have still gone, "Oh, that's open enough," you know. But I think it would have had more weight as an ending there.
I don't think it needs to be neat though. I don't think I was ever expecting a completely neat ending from Refn.
No, I wasn't either. Which is why I'm saying like that would have been. I would have been perfectly happy with that last episode because, like I say, it's not neat because, you know, there's still plenty of things to happen after that.
Yeah, because if you look at the way all the characters end up, you've got Diana's going to keep going, and she's going to meet Yaritza, who's going to become the new sort of protege, the new killer, who's going to like sort of right the wrongs of the world, right? Yeah. And then Jesus, I mean, okay, I keep saying that I kind of wanted to see Yaritza like go to town on him, and you know, in a murdery way, not the way that she has been. But like, if you look at the end of his story and where he ends up, again, if you keep this idea of like the world keeps spinning, it's the idea of like, well, no, now he's the one in charge. He's become his mother. He's become the one who's causing the chaos in the streets. He's become the one who's doing this. He's kind of the natural villain now for things going forward. And you know, by not giving me that catharsis, by not giving me Jesus' demise by the end of the show, it's kind of like, yeah, because there's always going to be that big bad. You're never going to be completely satisfied because there's always going to be another one. So he's going to keep continuing, much like Yaritza's going to keep doing what she's doing. But I mean, you could totally do a season 2 of this. Like season 2 could totally exist if Refn wanted to do it.
I would never expect it. But no, you could.
I'm not expecting it, but yeah.
No, and I think that's what I say. Like this episode, I don't feel like I needed it in the end because all of these things that we're just talking about as, okay, this is what happens with this character. This is where we leave him off. All of that was at the end of the last one. And I just feel like it was a better conclusion in terms of, okay, this is where you end with a statement. While this is a different statement in that, okay, no, there's just these two characters. I think it was more, for the show overall, I would have preferred the last, the ending of the last episode.
Do you have anything positive you want to say, though?
Direction's still phenomenal. You know, performances are great in this episode. The stuff we've been saying all show. You know, the music. Oh man, you know when it kicks in the bar, like you said, you know, there's incredible moments in their own right. Just I don't think it adds to the overall thing, but even though very enjoyable content.
I love this season. I love this show. I think it's wonderfully unique and something that's not being offered anywhere else. And it's full on Refn, it's full on style, it's full on like there's so many moments from this show that, and even though we had some gaps between some episodes, it was never difficult to remember what had happened. It was so meticulous and really giving each moment the gravitas that it deserved, that more than anything else would, because that's the way Refn does things, is he makes scenes last eternally long.
And that's especially true of something on a streaming service where there's an expectation that people will watch it faster. Sometimes you know traditional weekly TV, you know, obviously they'll often have a previously on a little recap at the start, but you know, the good ones you can still remember most of the beats week to week comfortably enough. There have definitely been times on streaming shows where we've gone a week between episodes and really struggled with the previous episode's content because they're paced and shot in a way with an expectation that people will watch them quicker than that.
But it's one of the most unique things that I'll see TV-wise this year, so it's something that is going to stick out amongst the crowd, and It'll probably get a lot of praise when it comes to end of year awards and things like that. So that is the final episode of Too Old to Die Young. So let us know what you thought of the final episode and the season as a whole in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and everything we do here, you can go over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. We can support us for as little as $1 per month, and that keeps all the content coming. You get some bonus stuff over there for that, and then obviously other stuff at the higher tiers. So go and have a look-see. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?